Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hope you all are doing fantastic. Let's take a look and see what is going on with Bitcoin. So, getting the solid bullish consolidation and the potential move up, I do want to see our daily potentially close above the 63,940. That will be extremely important. This is where it's going to be very difficult for me to kind of tell you um, where price action is going besides the actual moving averages. So this is kind of the time of the market where, I can basically see either way. I can basically see price action going either way. From a bullish and a bearish perspective. So it is a very difficult time to really see the market in a clear fashion. It's going to be an interesting August. That's all I'm going to say. I can definitely see us at one point in time, maybe somewhere up here getting rejected. I don't know for sure if that's going to happen, but you just have to be prepared for weird price action, especially at the first week of the month. This is just really sketchy. Now, like I said, guys, if we get that move up, to let's say this week we get this move up to 66,482 or 67,500, that's great, but it doesn't really mean that we're going to have a good time in August. What that means is, there's a possibility that maybe on the 12 hour or a higher time frame we get rejected off of that 200 and then we just free fall or really, start taking out some of these levels down here, in a very violent fashion, right? I really didn't want to see the first week of August doing this type of movement. I mean, it's doing what it's doing, but it's very sketchy. You just don't want to see the first week acting bullish, right? So just keep that in mind. Right now, like you have a little bit of a tail, and you could get this continuation. I mean, this could even be you know, it's same with the 4 hour, right? You could put the stop below this wick and you could just try to ride this thing all the way up, however far it wants to go. However, it could go against you, especially because we have 27 days left of this candle, right? This could be the wick to the downside that we need, and that could be it. But I'm not counting this. I'm basically not saying that this is our low yet. This is not, really um a really good call to make at this point, especially because we have 27 days left. Um, if price wants to get its butt moving going upwards, we can definitely see that happening. I'm just not saying it's not promising yet until we get more information, right? If this were to happen on the second or the third week of August, I'd be like, okay, yeah, bottom, definitely could be in. But we're still in the first week with just a few days in, and it's sketchy to me. I'm not fully trusting it. It can definitely be a bottom, but I'm not fully trusting it just yet. The weekly, you're getting that bounce off of the 200 of May. You dip down into this pool of liquidity again, taking out and fulfilling this order block once again, and getting that bounce off of the weekly. So definitely bullish signs are in the air. It's just whether or not we're going to see it hold in that way, right? The 5 day does give me some promise because it was in a kind of a bullish pattern, a bullish kind of wedge pattern that's now breaking out. If we can get that continuation, the only problem with that is that we don't have a real wick on this candle to the downside. We have about a $200 wick, which is why you can't really see it, especially because of this order block as well. There we go. But we don't really have a major wick to the downside. Not that we necessarily need one, but it is sketchy, right? So just keep that in mind, okay, for the 5 day. Um, 3 day, halfway decent. You can have that larger wick to the downside. I definitely think the bottom's in for the 3 day, especially because we're closing in 9 hours. So that's not bad. I just I'm not 100% trustworthy yet, especially because of how this market has been in the bearish environment, right? So let's take a look and see what we can kind of find for the smaller time frames here. Your 12 hour looking bullish, getting above the 21, possibly testing that 50 pretty soon here. And then obviously, we could come up and visit this 200 MA up here, right? So that's going to be, if we get that, and we're about to get those almost those golden crosses on the 10 and the 8 hour, which are very interesting signs. So you have to assume if we get this move up and we close above the 8 hour 200 and the 10 hour 200, that you're going to test the 12 hour. So that's what I was saying, guys. We can get up to 67.5, we can get up to 68,522 ish, where this is at. We can get all the way up to the middle of this order block, 69,317, or even the top above 70,000. But it doesn't mean that we're going to end this month bullishly in August. If especially if it's going to be a violent move to the upside, it could happen within the first 2 weeks, and then the next 2 weeks are kind of bearish in a sense, right? So the only thing giving me pause is timing on a larger time frame. On the monthly in particular. Let me take a look at the 3 month. So the 3 month, it had its move down. That could be enough of a wick. So the 3 month might be taking precedence over the 1 month. That is interesting. We have a month and 27 days, so it did just, pretty much open not that long ago, about a month ago. So it could definitely have, there's a potential that the bottom is in for this. This could be tweezer bottoms, and you could even long the 3 month potentially, which would be crazy. The 12 month, you had majority of this 12 month was a swing high, and you had that move down. So, the question being is, are you going to get the bounce now? Did you take out enough liquidity? And that's not, I don't know if we did or not. Let me take a look and see from a 786 perspective. We almost touched that 786 from the bottom of this candle to the top of this swing high here. The 786 would have been around 57,464, around that 57,292 I was targeting. So there's a potential, there's a possibility, especially if you take it from the actual candle body. Probably you probably hit it. Yeah, 60,000. So you definitely stabbed all the way through it if it was pulled from the candle body. So it's really going to be interesting to see whether or not our bottom is actually in. This for right now, what we need to focus on is some of the smaller macro time frames, and then obviously your meso, some of your bigger meso time frames. Your 8 hour and your 10 hour are extremely interesting right now, so you have to assume that there's going to be a continuation to the upside for right now. Even though I know, and one of the things that is bothering me is there's so much liquidity in here that's just being left alone. And like I said, there's going to come a point where this will get left alone. It's just I don't know when that point's going to come, right? Nobody does. Um, let's take a look at the 4 hour. So the 4 hour, slightly got above that 200 in the last candle close, and now you're getting that continuation above the 200. Definitely got to wait for that golden cross so to happen again with the 50 and the 21. A 6 hour never lost the 200, so we got kind of the um, almost a death cross from the 21, but we never got it, and we got an actual nice bounce off of the 200, which is great. Um, the 1 hour, we're getting back above we lost it for a second. We lost the 200. We almost got that death cross, but we're getting back above the 200 with a strong bullish move to the upside. So, I do want to see price consolidate within this range, at least for today. If we are expecting the continued move up, like I said, guys, you're going to want to watch all of these levels, like I said before. Um, Honestly and ideally, I am basically for right now going to target within the 67.5 and to 69,317 range on the bigger time frames. So, this could trend all at once, right? Up and then kind of take a slight dip down and keep going up and, that type of thing and testing some of these levels. But at the end of the day, the reason why I'm going to be targeting that high up is because of the 12-hour 200 MA and because of where I know that price likes to go when it's trying to satisfy order blocks. And obviously, this is a huge, basic, almost like a volume gap that we never got to fill, right? This is something that needs to be revisited at some point in time. So I'm expecting for price to want to get into here sooner rather than later, especially with that 8 hour and 10 hour golden cross coming. Um, 15-minute looking bullish. You kind of they're trying to play people. You have that head and shoulders right there, but it's breaking out to the upside. Um, just be very careful in this market. Like you're gonna see, and then one of the things is like too, like I tell you guys, is we're at a time now where like even though this is a bearish pattern, it's breaking out bullishly, right? It still is making lower highs, and it's wanting to break out bullishly. So just be aware of that, guys, and especially the 8 hour and the 10 hour are what you have to take seriously. Like those are the two that we got to just keep watching and seeing what they're doing on a daily basis. Okay. That being said, guys, let's take a look at liquidity, see what's happening there. Let me refresh this here. So when it comes to the 4 hour, you got this nice bridge up. You have to assume if you get above 64,685, you're just going to keep that move on going up, right? The thing that's sketching me out is all of this liquidity down here, and it's making me uncomfortable. But again, this is never going to be a perfect reversal setup, and they're going to try to make it seem as potentially bearish as possible, where people are going to want to keep shorting the top, right? You get a pump up, people immediately want to ape in, short the top, or they're trying to chase long. So, again, expect that trend to happen so that, it stops out people that are 100xing price action. When it comes to the 1 hour, it's also sketchy because now you have this bridge down here to bring you down into this area, right? So, the question being is, I would say for today, watch, somewhere up in here, 64.6, can we consolidate and go move further up? If we can, you can expect us to get above 65,737, start taking some of the 66,000-ish, liquidity out. But if we can't, this could be a possible area where we get rejected, or even right here, right? 65.5, where you got that double top would be even better, and more realistic. When it comes to the 100x, you have some to about 63,200-ish. But again, with that 8 hour and 10 hour cross, guys, I have to assume we're going to keep just moving up for right now. That's the way that works, right? Especially if we can potentially flag would even be better. But you know, you have on Key. Sorry, I was about to call it Kiyotaka. That's its old name. It's open market now. On open market, you have all of these orders to the upside. Just begging to get eaten up. So it's trying to really go for that liquidity to the upside. I mean, you have a couple to the downside, down to about 61,000, 61.5, and 61,000, but this shows you that to the upside, you could potentially even come all the way up to 65.2 and then potentially 66,400-ish area. So, it really does allude to the fact that we're going to get that move up with that 8 hour and 10 hour cross. So for right now, I have to be bullish. Um, unless I see otherwise, but that's the trend. The trend is up right now. Same with the 15 minute. You can see the 100x. We have it about 64.7. Checking off the 50x, you can see we have some red liquidity up around 66,000. You got some more around 67.5. There's all of this up here that I could easily just go for. Problem is same with the downside, right? So you're kind of in this in between state, which is not a great place to be in August. So at the end of the day, guys, I don't like I could literally see August pumping for the first 1 or 2 weeks, dumping down here and just creating this massive just doji candle. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I just know I wouldn't be surprised. Like this can't go just up only. I mean, it could, but that would basically make it seem more like we could possibly be reversing our bearish trend in the bear market and possibly be getting out of it slowly but surely. Um, so just be aware of probability wise, like that doji candle for August could definitely happen where we wipe out both sides. Okay. And August is known for being a rough month. Same with September. Don't really start having too much fun until we get into October, November timeframe, right? Let's take a look at our simple map, kind of see what that's doing, see if we can get some more accurate levels here. So taking a look at your simple map, you can see that we're slowly moving up. You kind of have a little bit of a resistance point around 64.2, so definitely got to get above that. If you're able to get above that, you're going to test 64.260. Getting above that, you can test 64.710, and then basically after 64.710, you can fall through all the way to about 65.4. Now to the downside. So to the downside, I'd be looking for support at 63.390, then to 63.180, and then to 62,850, and then you could basically fall through to about 62,220 before you start taking out some of this to about 62,000. So definitely have some levels to the downside as well. You do unfortunately have more 100x to the downside than to the upside. However, you do have more cumulative shorts build up to the upside in the short term, rather than to the downside. So in the near term, where you're buy price action, you do have a lot more shorts that you could liquidate, right? Or take out. That's what I'm seeing for the scalping time frames, and then for your swing time frames. Um, again, 64,260 is going to be extremely important to get above. You get above that, you can basically, resume that climb up to about 64,710. And then if you get to 64,710, you can get past that. You can basically fall through liquidity and just kind of take it out until about 65.4. And then same with the downside, guys. You got to get basically use 63,390 as support or 63,180. And then if you fall through there, it'd be around 62,850. And then you fall through there, it'd be around 62,220. All right, guys, that being said, that is what I have for you for right now. As usual, if you guys want to use Trading Different and its tools, feel free to use my code Sean. You'll get 10% off of your order, and you'll get amazing access to this beautiful tool suite, being able to identify where liquidity is located, as well as being able to easily identify trend and see where price action is more than likely going. All right, guys, so that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you all later, like on this evening. Take care.